All right. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Happy holidays.
Too.
Let's see. Today is Thursday, December 21st, 2023 at 7:30 p.m. We're here at the Newbury Municipal Offices on 12 Kent Way, second floor hearing room. This is the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. And here, my name is Eric Spahn. I'm the chair. We have Martha Taylor, our town planner. Chris Evo-Fried, who is our administrative assistant. We have Michelle Weaver, who is a associate member, Mario Cannavale, who is a member, and we have our planning board liaison, Larry Murphy. So, with that, we will open the meeting and we will move to the first public hearing.
Is anyone supposed to be here for this, the variance? No? We're just going to do the draft?
We're going to do the draft and it's first on the list.
Okay. Gage Foley, 7 Bittersweet Lane. The applicant is requesting a variance for relief from the requirements of Newbury zoning bylaws, section 97.5D, common driveways by special permit only, sections 97.5D 4B04, crown driveway cross section, and 97.5D 4B06, driveway intersection angle related to the proposed modification to an existing 2-lot common driveway to serve a 3rd lot. Requested relief is to allow portions of the common driveway to be super elevated instead of crowned, and to allow angle of intersection with Bittersweet Lane to remain at 30 degrees instead of the required 60 degrees for the property located at 7 Bittersweet Lane, Newbury, Mass.
Great. All right, so we have a draft. We have some comments and edits by Martha, which is the most current copy.
Yes.
And so with that, I think I have the one comment underneath the decision that I'll just jump in and start with section 4 decision. In view of the foregoing, the zoning board hereby finds the variance is warranted based upon the information submitted and notes that as stated at the hearing, the project as proposed has been reviewed by the planning board and the planning board unanimously supports the petition. And then we would add the zoning board, after review of proposed plans of the existing conditions of the, due to the existing conditions of the land, the topography provides a hardship as noted in the findings, thus requiring a variance which is deemed appropriate by the ZBA. Something like that. Good comment, Martha. Because it, after all, is a variance. Variance has to do with one of the 3 items of the land. And so we need to state the condition without restating everything in the findings. Does that make sense?
Do we have to have a special meeting with Jack to approve?
We'll get to that once we go through the edit. The only other comment is under the conditions, any proposed changes to the approved plan would need to be brought back before the planning board and zoning board. Squeak that in as number 6 and move 6 down 1.
So that's in addition to number 5.
I could split it. Start with any other and make that the start of number 6.
Or you could add the first part of that to 4 as the dimensional sort of,
Yeah.
well,
I can do that.
no, the driveway and the, I don't know, just thinking it should stand out by itself.
Yeah.
So split 5.
Split 5.
Yeah.
You talk about the driveway, you talk about the street, you talk about any changes. It was all pretty straightforward. Michelle, do you have any comments?
Nope.
Mario, any comments? So Martha, do we have an opportunity with Michelle here, who sat in on the hearing, to have her?
I mean, since all 4 of you were here at the hearing, I think you would just need to, there's a note in here on who the voting members were, so that might need to be.
Number 3.
Yeah.
Number 3. Yeah.
So I think it would be okay to say the voting members were Reginald and Michelle. Larry, what do you think about that?
Yeah, it seems to me that we've done that when we had our associate member sit in, who had sat in all of the sessions of the special permit, and then we lost the voting member, had the associate sit in, so I think there's some precedent for it.
Yeah, I think so too. It's a little different because we haven't lost Jack, he just can't attend tonight. But since you were all present, I think that would be reasonable.
Okay. Any other comments or edits or anything? No? So is there a motion to approve the
Make a motion to approve the decision as discussed and
amended?
amended.
Okay.
A second?
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, it passes. Do you have all the comments?
Yep. I'll prep it next week and put it in the hallway for signature.
Yeah, three comments, 3 edits. Is everybody around or can stop by and sign it?
Yep.
Great, let's move on to the next one.
Okay. Vincent Godin, Cottage Commercial Sunset Club 2-8 Old Point Road. The applicant is requesting a special permit / finding for the relief of the Newbury zoning bylaw section 97-4 D4 change of use to allow modifications to the property, including installation of a 40 by 40 pavilion and an 8 by 20 storage container on the site, and to approve the use of a 7 by 30 section of the site for removable storage sheds. These modifications require an amendment of the Zoning Board of Appeals decisions dated January 19, 2021 for the property located at 2-8 Old Point Road, Plum Island, Newbury, Mass.
Good evening.
Good evening. Happy
All right.
holidays.
Yeah, happy holidays. So this is a continuance. We heard you present your plan last month. There were some requests, there was some additional information provided by you, and there were some additional public comments that were received.
Okay.
So with that, I'd like to take a moment and have an overview, if I may, and then we'll allow you to present your additional information. We'll read the additional comments, and we'll have whatever discussion, or a continued discussion. So a quick outline, I think, is that to have an understanding is that the Zoning Board of Appeals, per the bylaws that are under our purview and an authority to review is the intent and purpose of the bylaws themselves, and specifically the Plum Island Overlay District, and the purpose and intent of that. And specifically, there are dimensional requirements and there are use requirements. And so the ZBA is focused on use. With this and with the site and changes to the site, the planning board has purview with a site plan review. You previously were at the planning board. There was some discussion, there were some issues. You changed your approach a bit. And then because it's a pre-existing non-conforming, you're back here before us in order to amend the special permit that was previously granted. There was some discussion about signage, and I'd just like to bring up that signage is regulation 97-8, and that's governed by the building inspector. And he has the authority to review the bylaws and set guidance. If there's something outside of those bylaws, then it comes back to us. And then the select board has some overview of your entertainment license. And so in terms of the use and understanding the use and what you're proposing, there will be some discussion about the entertainment license. So with that, please present what you've added to the application.
Great. So I'm assuming you all got the information that was sent in. I guess to start, we were asked to revise the FAR calculations, or the lot coverage calculations mostly, to include the movable sheds and some of those items. So that was all updated and is included in the revised application, all of which will still be much under the required 20% and 25% FAR, and much less than what was originally on the site when this was approved back in 2019 and then revised in 2020. Second issue, the shade study was brought up, which was actually very interesting to see how that was going to affect the site. And we have some pictures that were provided that show 4 different times a year at 2 different times during the day. A couple of them it's dark, so really wasn't relevant. While the pictures are kind of tough to see because it's literally a structure with everything else being flat, it at least shows a sense of where the shading is going to be. And what it did show was that the shading would always kind of stay on the property. It wouldn't, be on Plum Island Boulevard and on adjacent properties. So that was provided as well. And then number 3 on the list of things that were provided there was discussion about lighting that was brought up. We spoke with our lighting engineer that had done all the lighting across the entire property. When it was originally approved, we made a point of saying that we're going to keep it actually below code requirement technically for a commercial use because of the adjacency of the residences and the fact that it's kind of a habitat and whatnot. And so we went back to our lighting engineer and had him kind of put a little plan together of what we were proposing, mostly uplighting underneath and no lighting that would actually spread away from the pavilion, all meeting dark sky standards. And we have more information of what he'd be proposing if that was required. I think that's maybe more of a planning board issue, but figured since it was brought up, may as well address it. The last issue, there was a few of you, I think, that had brought up trying to get a sense of what the 10-foot setback on Plum Island Boulevard, because we were proposing a 20-foot setback on on Old Point Road and a 10-foot setback on what we consider the side road, being Plum Island Boulevard. Well, I tried to get an architect to try and do some sort of visual from the road looking onto the property. It just wasn't feasible to get somebody to try and superimpose something on there. So what we did do is provide information of kind of what's the adjacency, because at the end of the day, does it fit with what's in the area, and does it make sense, and does it look out of place? And so we went and looked at the adjacent properties directly to the east. There's 3 homes right along Plum Island Boulevard that range anywhere from 5 feet setback to about 8 feet setback from the road. And then if you go further down the street and you go to the Beachcomber, which is less than 5 feet setback, and then you go to the new bathrooms that are getting constructed or finished, they're right on the property line. So it's not something that is inconsistent with what is along that road. And then we provided some pictures of those 3 homes that are adjacent. And to give you a sense on height, if you look at the middle one that kind of slopes up, that's about 24 feet to the peak on that home, and I believe we're at 22 on the pavilion, so it will actually be less than that. So just tried to give you something that would give you a scale of what it would look like, but obviously it would be set further back than all 3 of these properties.
Do you know the peaks on the first house? The height of the first peak?
We tried to get it, it was easy to get on the other one because we could shoot right up it. We estimated it was somewhere around 15, 16.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I thought. A lot of the roofs are 15.
Yeah. And so with that, I would glad to answer any questions.
Alrighty. Michelle, any questions?
Not right now. I guess actually there was one question we got. Was one of the neighbors talked about seating for 300 standing capacity for 300 guests. Is that still something that you guys?
That's not something that's ever been envisioned. Honestly, we had a discussion after we left. We were trying to figure out how did that even get there, and we ended up talking to the manager that runs the I guess events if somebody had interest in them, and she honestly was just like, I just threw a number in. You guys didn't tell me, what it was, so it's never occurred. We couldn't feed that many people, so it's not something that. I think it was just something that made it on the website that just...
Is it still on the website?
That's a good question. I have no idea. If it is on the website, it's known at least by the manager who's running that is not something that, unless we had some sort of alternate method of finding parking or something, or approval or something, we would not be able to do.
You have an occupancy, maximum occupancy, right?
The way the occupancy seems, we have a seating amount based on the parking, and we have an occupancy based off of the inside of the building. My understanding, I have no idea that there's any sort of limit on, I don't know how it works with fire. It's usually fire that would give an occupancy amount for an entire area. I just remember having discussions about the inside and the number of seats that were allowed.
Yes, if you had an event venue, then the fire department and the fire chief or inspector would request and approve an assembly plan.
Correct.
So, right, and the number of parking spaces was provided in the previous special permit application, and you haven't changed any of that parking?
Have not.
On the original application, was the shed proposed and the storage units?
Yes, there was a typo that I had not included it in one of the sections that was since added in there.
Just the shed, not the other merchandise?
The merchandise shed was included, not the additional sheds just for storage.
The refrigeration
Weren't
slash-
yeah, they weren't mentioned in one section of the application.
Okay.
One of you had mentioned that I had forgotten to put it in there, and that's still since been added in there, and they've since been added into the, they were always in the same, on the plan. They just weren't in the lot coverage calculations, and they weren't mentioned in one of the paragraphs of what we were requesting.
That's the 8x20, right?
No, the 8x20 is the
7 by
merchandise. Yes, the 7x30 is the additional storage areas. The 8x20 is the merchandise shed that is currently actually on site that we're kind of asking for a forgiveness, I guess, is the.
Have you submitted any signage to the building inspector?
The only signage that exists on the property is, we have the existing grandfathered light-up sign, and as part of the original application for building, we did put up a sign on the actual structure, the barn, that just says Sunset Club on it. Those are the only two actual signs that are not directional. You know, we have a sign, we have a surfboard when you turn onto into the parking lot, because people were having trouble seeing right after the barn, where do you actually turn, so we put up a surfboard that says entrance with an arrow. So that's directional. We have another entrance sign to get into the property from the parking lot, because people were having,
Trying to look at the pictures I took today.
And more music.
And the music came on.
Your wife's calling you.
Yeah, I took some pictures today of the signage, so I was just taking a look.
Yeah, and then there's an entrance sign to get in from the parking lot. People were having a little confusion, how do I get in? So we put an entrance sign above the little overhang. There's a kind of a mural that's on the back of the kitchen that just kind of looks beachy, that says Sunset Club on it, but that faces into the parking lot, is not seen by the public driving by. It's more of a mural done by a local Plum Island artist.
Is there any thought of any signage on the pavilion?
No. No. When we had originally gone to the planning board, we had a guy that does tents. We were asking just for a temporary tent permit for the summer to put a tent there. And he was trying to impress us of all the different things that could be done on the tent. And so the one he sent us, he found our logo and plastered it right on the tent, which we clearly now understand it was a little bit it was more meant to just show what the tent would look like, not that we were planning on putting it on there. And no, we have no intention of adding additional signage.
Would the space be used only for weather?
I guess that would depend. I guess if somebody wanted a 50-person event to separate it from other people, that could possibly be utilized in that case as well, where they would kind of rope off and move tables over and say, hey, these are for these people only.
Because in the application was for like being able to move.
Correct.
Correct.
Well, the reason for the weather is if you're gonna promise people, let's just say you want your, graduation party
Right.
there, you gotta promise somebody they're gonna have a place to be whether it rains or shines, so
So when there wasn't something like that, it would be empty, it would just remain empty?
that would be the plan, because people at the end of the day, they're there to be outside and enjoying the weather.
What's the ground plane finish again underneath the pavilion?
So currently, I'd say about half of it to 2/3 of it is, maybe about half to 2/3, yeah, is a bocce court that's kind of a stone dust finish with some, is it 6x6s? Timbers that kind of go around it. So that would all get removed, the stone dusting would be removed, and sand would get just kind of put back over that. And then we'd be using that matte finish, the ADA compliant beach matting, Moby mats, to provide some sort of kind of pathways as needed through there, something that could get removed in the off-season.
Any thought of adding anything to the pavilion based on like plastic for rain or wind?
We haven't planned on anything like that now.
It would just remain totally open.
That's the plan
That's
at
the
the
goal.
moment. If we were gonna change anything like that, obviously we'd have to go to the fire department and the building inspector and have those discussions, but that's not anticipated.
Did this go to the planning board
No.
for site review?
Not yet. So you guys need to approve these first. So
Okay.
if you do, then it will come to the planning board and the conservation commission.
Okay.
And if you don't, then
Doesn't
it
have
stops
to.
here.
We've always been told that this should be the first stop.
That's right.
Just like to make sure the bases are covered and also what our interests are, but what some of our authority may have interest, but may not have the authority to dictate it. So, and then sometimes people ask, and we have to defer them to other boards or entities in town that actually have the authority to act and answer the question
That makes sense.
certain people are asking. Okay, so we talked about site plan review, and we just talked about the process to get there. That's one of my notes. And then, so you've been to the select board, and recently they approved entertainment licenses
Correct.
for next year?
Yep.
So was the pavilion part of the application for the entertainment license for this year?
No, it was not, but my understanding is an entertainment license is just you have a premise, our premise includes where that is, and so it's an entertainment license to, regardless of whether that structure is there or not, it's just for the premises. So if we had the pavilion there, we wouldn't need to alter anything in the entertainment license because it's already included on the premises. We're not expanding our premises to include the area where the pavilion will be.
The select board and their council actually clarified that a little bit for us, that most music is covered by the common vic license, but anything that's amplified sound would need to be approved by an entertainment license, but that would encompass our space entirely inside or out, but it's only for amplified music or entertainment.
Thoughts about putting any kind of music in the pavilion?
I guess the whether there'd be music there or not is kind of irrelevant to whether it's there or not. If a group, if we were going to have, we've had bands out in that area where the pavilion is now in the past. It wouldn't become a band area.
Right.
No, that's not our intention on it. But whether, if there was a group and and they said, oh, we want to have a band when we have our event, and then we put them under there, obviously we'd have to accommodate the band under there as well, but it's not intended to become a function hall for bands. I can promise you that, given the fact that we have tenants, and my brother-in-law with his young family is actually the closest house to that, so.
Do you have to get an entertainment license for each event? Or you got
No,
an
it's an annual license. We actually just got approved last week for
Yep.
the coming year.
So just, they field questions about noise, about neighbors, about complaints, about, we usually don't. Once something comes and goes, people aren't calling us with a complaint. And so we don't hear it unless something actually comes to our attention. And so if there is a change, and again, what we're really now going to talk about is the change of use, the intensity of use, and what the pavilion does to the use. And with that understanding is what you're asking us to basically approve. They're just trying to make sure that the select board and the entertainment license for what they approved and how you intend to use are both hand in hand.
The intention is to utilize the space no different than it has been used in the last 2 years. The only difference is we're not providing the level of hospitality that we're hoping to provide to people when, you know, they think they're gonna have a space available to them and it ends up raining, or they come and have a meal and it starts raining and they need a place to move. Yeah, there's no intention to change the intensity of the amount of bands happening, the amount of, I mean, we've been open now 2.5 summers, and I think maybe we've had a live band outside 10 times?
Less than 5.
Less than 5 times. So,
I think we
outside of Plum Fest.
Outside of Plum Fest, which was rained out this year, and we were the only place that provided any live entertainment. I think we've had 4 live bands.
So, you know, it's something that we were allowed to do, we could have done the last 2 years, it's not something that's not the type of atmosphere we're looking to consistently provide there, and so, the pavilion won't change that, because we could have been doing it the last 2 years if we had wanted to.
So to get to the Plum Island PIOD purpose, to reduce damage to the public and private property resulting from flooding waters, ensuring public safety by reducing threats to life and personal injury, eliminating costs associated with the response of cleaning up flooding conditions, preserve open space, and to limit the expansion of non-conforming single and two-family structures so as to prevent the exacerbation of existing problems with density and intensity of use. As this is now a pre-existing non-conforming use, you're not falling within the purpose and intent to begin with, and so it's a special discussion, and not as straightforward as a residence of allowable 1- and 2-family homes or dwellings that then are governed as to how they can be constructed or reconstructed and fit within the dimensional basic requirements of the PIOD. And you don't fall within the part of non-conforming uses and structures, excluding single-family and two-family provisions of the PIOD shall not apply to pre-existing non-conforming structures or uses lawfully in existence as of the date of enactment. Non-conforming uses and structures within the PIOD should not be enlarged or extended, provided, however, that the following types of changes or alterations to non-conforming uses or structures may be authorized by a finding of the Board of Appeals in the PIOD. Change of pre-existing non-conforming use, it's not the case. Change of pre-existing non-conforming use to another less detrimental non-conforming use. So you're not changing the use, and you're certainly not changing it to a less detrimental non-conforming use. Reconstruction or structural change to a non-conforming structure, this is a new structure. Alteration of the non-conforming structure to
Well,
provide.
I would say though this is I mean, it could be considered a reconstruction of a structure that was damaged by a fire and had to be torn down.
Yeah. Interesting argument, but I would think that the previous, that you came before us and then we gave you a special permit, and that was based on that previous structure.
Well-
and time has passed. You can't keep reclaiming something.
No, I understand, but in that initial application, when we first made our initial application in 2020, the structure was there. And then the fire happened before we would have time to get in front of the meeting, and there was an amendment done to our application that discussed that there was a fire. The structure was gonna have to get torn down, in that we did have the intention at some point of having something there. Unfortunately, having that just happened, and we couldn't go to you guys and say, we want to put something there, so just tell us we're allowed to now put something there, because you would say, well, what are you gonna put there? And so there was discussion at the time that had said, we don't know, we obviously are gonna have to come back if that happens, because we understood that there was no way that the board was allowed to say, you're guaranteed that you're allowed to put something there.
So with that adding on to that discussion becomes the point of is this the full build out of the property, or does the business evolve and there could be more? I mean, originally you had a two-story restaurant on stilts that
Yep.
was there in 2018, 19, and then in 2020, conditions changed, and so the Sunset Club came before us. Now you're back at it. Residents in general are very leery about changes, and then they're really, really leery about changes upon changes upon changes. And it's not that even with the best intentions and the best, the most beautiful looking structure, people have reservations about something that continuously gets changed or adjusted, and wonders where in the bylaws that's all allowable, seeing that you have to come get a special permit. And certainly for something that was presented, and at the time, and I don't think you guys have, but in other cases, we get people that make a lot of promises, or they, I'm gonna live in this house till I die, and my parents are gonna live in this house, and we all know that things can change, and so the intent of the bylaw is to make things as even as possible and not personable. You're all nice guys, but we want to make sure that the property and the decisions and any findings of use have a lasting longevity of appropriateness for the property. And if we, not that we set precedents and just because someone else had something done, means that someone else can do it, because the conditions of the PIOD are all based on the judgment that what is being proposed is not more detrimental to the existing neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have a house and you have other houses, it's a lot more easy to compare what someone wants to do with a house on a piece of property as opposed to a non-conforming commercial entity that is then surrounded by residential properties.
Mm-hmm.
So with that understanding, I think the question is do you see, or do you have plans to make more changes or develop this from time to time?
There are no plans. I will say, though, at the time where we made the application a couple of years ago, there were discussions at that time with the board as well as with the building inspector and others that there was a plan to do something with that corner, which is why it was left just as open sand at the time. And in the past 2 years, we've had discussions with the building inspector and other folks on other variations of plans we had. We had a smaller one-story elevated structure that we had looked at doing initially, shortly after, actually just as construction was finishing. The more that the restaurant was open, and the more we realized, you know what, it's not going to fit right for the neighborhood and what people want. People want their feet in the sand, and they want something a little more feeling in touch with nature. And so that's where we initially wanted just to have the temporary tent, to then morph into what we are proposing now. Unfortunately, when this was originally approved, we had just gone through the situation where we had just lost the structure that we were hoping we would have on the corner as a placeholder for part of the restaurant. And so there was no possible way to quickly understand what exactly is going to be the right thing for the restaurant now that this has happened. But I would say that we've always had the intention to do something on that corner of some sort. And if anything, I would say it has only scaled itself back as we've realized what we think is the most appropriate thing for the island and for the neighborhood, from the original 5,000 square foot, 2-story, 3-story structure that was originally approved in 2019 to the more low-key 2021 with the thought of doing a two-story structure on the corner that was smaller scale to now just doing a covered area that really just provides more protection just from inclemental weather. And so I would say, it's not to say that at some point we won't come, because unfortunately the way the proposal or the development order was written, I mean, if we add anything, we have to come back. But no, there's no intention to come back with some sort of a major development. I'm not to say that we won't, I don't want to be held to something that we don't come back and have to say, hey, we need to put a 5x5 such and such over here for whatever reason comes up, but not a significant structure as to what we're discussing right now.
Have you guys thought about the possibility of just a smaller roof, lower roof versus, I mean, if you look down the street, I mean, 3 out of 4 homes are probably 15 feet, the roofs. And if you put a big 40 by 40 building.
The house that's right behind those 3 is up at the same about 24 feet. 2 houses down, you're now at a 2-story structure that's probably at 30 feet. The next one over is actually on stilts up on a hill that's probably right at whatever the limit is of 35 feet. So, I mean, they're...
But across the street, the Peter Building and the Plum Island Grill are probably the same size roof as these, like 15, 16 feet.
Correct. Yeah, probably
Yeah.
somewhere around there.
I mean, and that's our concern, is the intensity of the neighborhood.
You have to remember that's the peak. So on average roof height, you're talking between 10 and,
But it wouldn't
and
look like
22.
this.
So it's
But it wouldn't look like these homes.
correct.
Yeah.
But if these are smaller lots, maybe the first one is a little bit bigger, but the other 2 are seemingly small, that if they were to develop, they
It's all the same.
Well, yeah, they're one lot, but the homes are.
they could put them on stilts.
Yeah, I mean, that is the reality. If we do own, there is a potential intention in the future to come back and knock those down, and would require us to go up, I don't know what the limit is, 30-something feet, to put a single parking underneath with 2 stories above it, which would put them, I mean, that's what happened right next to the store at the cottage. There was a tiny little cottage next to it, and now there's a, it's got to be within an inch of the limit. It's at 30-something feet high, and that's the reality is everything that's going to happen down that street in the future is going to go up because it's required to, and so you gotta go up 8 feet, and then you're going to have a 2 stories above that of 10 and 10. So you're going to be, and then you have a roof line. You're going to be at 30-something feet on every structure eventually, because you can't.
But with this particular structure, if I'm not mistaken, it's open air and it's set back further than any of those houses. So both of those things, I mean, it would, if you're looking visually at it, you can see through it and it's set back further. So I think that, visually it would fit a little bit more because of that.
No, I understand that, yeah.
I think what's tough is that because you're on the corner, these houses, yes, you see the gable end, right? I mean, except for this weird one, right, this salt block sort of. You see the gable end, so you're not seeing like the full flank of the roof, where you guys are on a corner, so you see both the gable end and the whole slope of the roof. I mean, for me, and I said this last month too, it's just so much roof when you're coming across there onto Plum Island. Is there an option that it's actually, the peak can stay the same elevation? Is it more shallow roof so that your piers are actually a little taller, you're seeing through a little bit more? So, the eave of that roof is actually up a little higher?
The only issue we would end up having with that is just that would start to defeat the rain and the
Well, I know,
sun.
I questioned some of that already to begin with, I think, a little bit. And this is sort of just a question for you. Is this blocking views for people under here?
It's 10 feet high, so I mean, I think this is probably a 7.5 feet. So you got another 1.5 up here. So anybody sitting
Yeah.
under it is not getting blocked from any views in any
Yeah, I
direction.
guess when you're seeing the sunset, right, until the sun's down at that angle, right, after that, I guess. So, I mean, that's for you to decide or not decide, but, so did I understand correctly though, but when there's no event and it's sunny out, no one's under here?
There might be an intention to have some for shade, because
Okay,
part of the
I mean,
issue
it
also,
feels like
in the
you're
middle
still
of the
gonna
day,
use this for-
yes, I mean,
right?
I have 2 redheaded children, one's redheaded, I need to sit under there, because
Yeah, okay.
I need shade.
Which is what I would expect, but I think you said that it wouldn't be in use then, but.
I think it was meant
think
more
it
as
would
if
be in
it,
use all the time, right?
if needed, it would be in use. If it's a really hot day and there's need for it, literally just pick up tables and move them over there, or.
It's gonna get the same use or the same
As-
number of people if you're crowded that were using the bocce courts.
Correct,
Are gonna
Exactly.
drift underneath the pavilion.
Right.
correct.
Yeah,
Was there any thought of turning the gable end towards rotating it?
yeah, I wondered the same,
So you're saying facing it towards the open end, towards the marsh?
Yep.
correct.
The only issue we were having, that was actually our initial thought, the only issue we were having there is providing the shade. That being said, if we enclosed the gable so that it wasn't see-through at the, so it goes down like this, and if it wasn't, if it kind of had the bottom there too and it was enclosed, that would still at least provide the same shading. Otherwise, if it just stays open on the gable side, the sun will just beam right through and you wouldn't have, our initial plan was actually to have it face that direction, which would then provide only a 10-foot roof line when you're looking at it from the road, which would therefore be much more in line with everything, and we'd
Yes.
be definitely open to that. It would just require us closing in the gable, I guess, of the,
Yeah, you'd have to enclose it for sun, and also, I think typically the rain comes from the west unless it's a really big storm, and then it
correct.
turns around.
But if it was enclosed in similar to the other 2 sides, it would at least provide the similar rain protection. We've also had an alternative where you could extend it slightly out the gable to provide a little more of a protection on that side. But we were definitely open to that. That was actually our initial thought on it, but then when they showed us the plan, we turned it. But then we've actually had, since when we were talking about shading, the initial shade study they did had it turned in that direction. I said, well, that doesn't make sense. It's not providing any shade protection. That's when they mentioned to us, well, we can just close that in, and therefore you would get the same shade protection, and it would turn it so that would accomplish the
Because I think that this is a special, all lots are special for everybody. This is a special location on Plum Island for everybody that goes to the beach, that comes over the bridge, that gets their first view down, will see this, and it will become a landmark. And you have a commercial use on one side that has a sign that's placed that people see. You're gonna have this. If this is placed sideways, let's say, and you see all the roof, it just seems to be, yeah, it seems to be a little bit more of an afterthought. If you're driving over and you have the balance of the gable end facing people as they approach, you have a structure that's a little bit more recognizable. You could have some windows or maybe even a little decoration on that gable end. And you're opening up the street for people to see past the pavilion and see the houses and see the continuation of the road, and to me, seems better presented than the side of it.
Mm-hmm.
And if it is symmetrical and you're just rotating it, it's just a little bit more, and you're not bringing it down below the 10 feet, then you'll still see the arches or the braces on the side. I think that would be an improvement visually.
I'm in agreement. I honestly, I just flew up today and we got the shade study a couple weeks ago, and it was one of the things we wanted to talk about was now, hey, look, we originally wanted it facing that way because we thought it would look nicer driving onto the island, having it that shape than just seeing the sloped up roof. But then the shading created an issue, but now that they've seemed to tell us that there's a way to just enclose that section of the gable so that we can still maintain that.
What does that mean, enclose it with what?
Just same shingling, just comes straight down. I'm trying to think of,
You could do like a board and bath. Or,
Yeah.
yeah, so I guess I could show you right here, some sort of something would happen right here. Like you had mentioned, maybe 2 little windows or something, but something that would just this little A section
Yeah,
right
no, I
here
understand what you mean. I
would get
guess
closed in so that the shading is similar.
So we're just tongue and groove
Yeah.
board as long as
Cedar
it's
shakes.
consistent.
The what?
Is it
Boarded
the
back.
truss structure?
Yeah.
It goes behind the truss, so you still
Got it.
you see the structure or something. and
Yeah,
then
something.
See the visual.
Yeah, you could hang panels behind the truss so that you see the truss. I mean, we just take a look at that and ask the people that make it that it's either gonna look really good or I guess you just gotta look at it.
Yeah.
Some renderings would really help, I think.
But that would, if you have a 10-foot setback and you have a 40-foot structure and it's 20 feet to the center, your height point is now 30 feet off the road as opposed to 10 feet.
Correct.
So you've now moved the high point back
Yep.
onto the property.
More similar to that, so the one that you see in that picture, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I think what you've done with the sails that are there now, I think is beautiful. And it's perfect for Plum Island and for a seaside location and what everyone wants to see when they go to a location like Plum Island. And this just feels very different than that.
Well, I
This
will
feels
say
very
that
heavy,
unfortunately, the roof color wouldn't look like this either. Unfortunately, this was the only one they had. It's gonna be much more of a light color and.
Well, I'm glad you said that.
Yes,
you know,
because
we're
we
seeing
tried to go
that.
back to them and they said, well, unfortunately, the CAD model we had, this is the color it comes in. We'd have to get somebody to build a new CAD and do it in the lighter gray that's similar to actually all the houses that we have surrounding. We're all doing a similar light gray asphalt,
The lighter the better for
yes.
First.
Heat Island.
Exactly. So I actually meant to bring that up because it was something that we had discussed, and unfortunately, it would have delayed weeks, and they would have had to get somebody to build a new CAD drawing of it in light gray. But that is our intention. And
I think that's better already.
yes,
you know,
and
then
having this
thinking about
discussion,
turning it.
we always preferred it turning the other way. The only reason we turned it the direction that you see it right now was the issue with the shading, which it seems now we can resolve. So in that case, it sounds as though if the board would be happier with that, we would also be happier turning it back the way we had initially intended.
Okay, we have 2 resident comments, is that right?
Yeah.
Chrissy?
Yes.
All right, Mario, you read the long one, I'll read the short.
All right, is yours Hi Martha?
Yeah, mine's the Hi Martha and Chrissy. Okay. Hi Martha and Kristen and Chrissy, happy holidays to come. After viewing the 11/16/2023 ZBA meeting regarding the Plum Island Sunset Grill Pavilion tent proposed, I note and ask the following. How tall is the tent pavilion? You said it was 22 feet
At the center, yes.
at the ridge. What color pattern is the roof, and how light permeable is the material? Is the material fire retardant proof, or what any fire protection design is warranted with such to cover such a structure? Has the Newbury Fire Department reviewed the safety nature of the pavilion? So I don't think this has been submitted to the fire department or.
We have met them on site when we were initially having discussions with this, and their concerns was more if we were talking about enclosing sides with it. They said if you decide to do more than, I don't know, there's certain things, if you do 2 sides, it's certain things, if you do 3. But we said our intention is to leave it open. If we planned on doing anything different in the future, obviously we would talk to them.
They have a certain percentage of
Correct.
openness that then directs, because they're thinking of
Yep,
exiting.
but we've had discussion with them about this along the way. Actually, one of the folks at the fire department lives a couple doors down from me, so it's always easy to get his ear to pick his brain. And obviously, the building materials would meet all required codes.
And the building inspector would determine if you weren't meeting the intent of the building code.
Correct.
As noise band sound level As the noise band sound level was at length reviewed this summer by the select board at neighbors' request, I asked of the sound levels being changed if approved, the sound is somewhat captured. Does that make it less loud or more loud? So, I don't know the answer to that, but I would think that in terms of use, that if, that there would be some conditions of use of, and certainly if there was an issue, there was a process here by which someone came out and measured sound and there was judgment passed. And since the select board controls your license to do business and controls your entertainment license, we would probably direct it to the select board to govern that. We could put, I don't know exactly what we would put as a condition to try to control it.
Annually, they have to come up for their license, Sunset Club for the entertainment license for specific hours and whatnot. When this came up over the summer, there was actually a member of the board that came to an event and had the sound decimeters or whatever it was, and they thought it was completely appropriate levels, and it was no different than any other time except for the one time where the band turned and unfortunately faced in the wrong direction. But that's something that gets regulated on an annual basis, and if there's are any issues, would get addressed upon renewals. And I would note that when it was approved a couple weeks ago, there was no issues, correct? There were no more complaints, there was no issues.
The most serious concern is the visual approach from Plum Island Turnpike. The first sighting for residents and tourists alike, the pavilion in whatever form, if approved, should not be indicative of the Ringling Brothers Circus performance on the beach, slightly verbally. The house and housed here, front and center, or that at night it becomes, if only captured by light and refraction, a pointed dome in a lost in space ship landing zone of sorts. Lastly, the size of the roofing certainly is equal to, say, the billboard done at the traffic circle, for instance. I believe it to be of the utmost importance to review for the town approval and for precedent establishment to discern by the ZBA vote to be taken on what design is of proposed colors and specific pattern to be so prominently displayed. Thank you for your attention to this most important matter. So, in a way, we've already had discussion on a bunch of this, and here is a resident that has the same concerns, and I'm sure you share some of those.
As far as the exact design of the color of the roof and all that, is that something that is ZBA, planning board, both?
I would say that we could defer to the planning board to.
They looked at as part of the site plan review.
That's what I figured. It's
something of interest of ours. We don't have bylaws of that we're interpreting in which to make a decision on that.
got it.
So we would highly suggest, and/or we could put a condition that the planning board reviews it to make sure that it happens, but it's not ours to
Okay.
judge. Right.
Okay, Sunset Club, I continue to oppose the proposal. I've watched the recordings of the most recent ZBA meeting. As a result, I offer a few additional comments and concerns. As I wrote in a previous email, some of these comments and concerns may not be of ZBA concern. I will also send these comments to the Concom Planning Board in as much as they, not the ZBA, may have jurisdiction. Special events for up to 300 people I oppose. The pavilion will increase the people's capacity on the property. The Sunset Club website says that the private parties with up to 300 people can be accommodated. Allowed seating is currently about 160. The club was approved for 160 plus or minus patrons. If 300 people were present, much more parking would be needed. Additional parking is not available on the property. Currently, I recall that the club has parking for 64 or 54 cars for the staff and seated customers. Traffic will also increase. Accommodating more than 160 people will also increase the overall intensity of use and will not enhance the PI neighborhood. Then from the website, they kind of said basically, you know, what was on there. And then the merchandise shack store, I oppose its approval. Conditional approval, if the store was approved, please condition any approval to market only Sunset Club paraphernalia. The shack is a commercial enterprise neither requested nor approved mentioned in the ZBA and planning board decision for an indoor-outdoor restaurant of the past few years. Approval might open the door to other commercial venues on the site, resulting in what might be described as a mini-mall of small businesses. Such an outcome is not desired. Currently, the shack sits on the ground without a 2-foot clearance that is typically required on Plum Island. Can the shack be approved without proper constructions and drawings, including stair access? This will be a potential issue for the ZBA and most certainly for the planning board, Concom, and building inspector. Electrical connection to the shack, was this permitted and inspected by the town's building inspector and/or electrical inspector? You guys know?
There would have been electric already in that area that would have been done as part of the original plan, yes.
Okay. Signs on the pavilion, storage shed, and store shack, as well as other locations beginning to become a visual blight that is undesirable. Please limit. Storage shed. I support with the provisions of obtaining approvals from the building inspector and Concom. Construction drawings should be provided. These should indicate that there will be a 2-foot ground clearance. Any approval should be conditioned that the shed should be for the Sunset Club only and not for other people/business. Pavilion, I have several concerns. Construction drawings, provide them. If electrical connections are proposed, is that an issue for the drawings? If it were elevated, show stairs and railings needed to prevent falling. Do not allow sitting on the stairs. Will there be an elevated floor 2 feet above grade? The pavilion is sited where there are bocce courts currently. Its construction may increase patron usage beyond the permitted 160 seat capacity, more likely. Sight lines. In March 2023, applicant was considering a tent. The tent would have rolled down sides in the event of wind and rain. Does the applicant propose? Also included these for the pavilion. They may enhance usage of the pavilion, but they may or will become a hazard of obstruction sightline for cars, residence cars, as they exit Old Point Road. No net increase in seating. It strains credulity that seatings will be moved into and out of the pavilion depending on the weather that can rapidly change without increase of seating capacity. I also asked the ZB to consider this concern: lighting. Care should be taken to minimize excessive lighting. Use. Does the applicant propose that the pavilion will be used for bands and other functions such as dance? This usage may not enhance the surrounding neighborhood and sometimes not originally considered for this project. Consider whether music speakers should be prohibited, runoff from the roof. This might necessitate storm water management. Ground coverage. Do the 3 structures trigger a concern about too much ground coverage? To summarize, 300 people capacity is too large, especially given the lack of on-site parking. Construction drawing for the sheds and pavilion must be provided. Sight lines for traffic must be evaluated. Approving a small business enterprise and merchandise store shack should not be approved or approval. Steve Rand.
Alrighty. So there was a lot of mix in that
Yeah.
between planning board,
ZBA, building inspector, yeah.
and ZBA.
There's definitely no intention for other businesses to use the site.
What was meant by that one?
Approving a small business, I think just to have like somebody else in there, like a mini mall kind of,
Oh, okay.
that's what he said.
And he also said, there's only Sunset Club paraphernalia is sold in there.
Yeah.
And we're talking less than 5% probably, it's a minuscule amount, it's not a separate use, I guess.
Have there been any traffic incidences at either your entrance or exit?
There not.
site plan you submitted has a, Martha and Larry, it says edge of traveled way. Is there a different right of way for Plum Island Boulevard?
On which side is that, where it says edge of travel way?
It says it on both sides. There's a dashed line that kind of pokes out, which I assume would kind of be the,
I think that's what they consider the sidewalk, and at least on the Plum Island side, that's the sidewalk. On the other side, I think, I'm not sure exactly what that's ever been. It's not part of the property line. My understanding, I think it was because originally there's a change maybe in the asphalt that they've kind of said that's the road section and the rest, it's still asphalt. I'm not sure what that exactly meant. I don't know if you know, right, how this pops out a little bit and said edge of travel.
The dotted line.
I think it's,
I think that's the property line.
no, the property line is definitely,
it's got the corners.
the white is the dark line right here, and then it follows on that side. That's part of the road. My understanding at the time was that was just, if you end up going over there and it's a nuisance we have to deal with, the road is so much wider there that you'll actually get cars that decide at sunset to pull right against the gravel, or right against the granite curbing there, because it's wide enough to still allow cars to go by, and they think they can go watch the sunset right there and block everyone's view. So it's asphalt, but it's not, I'm not sure exactly what the difference was that they delineated that. I know on Plum Island Boulevard, that's roughly where they're delineating the sidewalk.
Okay, I just know that the Plum Island Grill across the street, the property line is about a foot from the corner, the whole sign, and everybody parks on the right of way.
Correct.
That's out there, and so just understanding where the sidewalk and where people are walking, and people parking to get to the beach and people parking to get to your establishment. But again, that's like a site plan review comment. I'm just
Yeah,
curious if it.
The actual property line, though, is the granite curb on
Yep.
Old Point
No,
Road.
that's quite clear on the site plan. It's just that
And then it's all asphalt from that point on.
I'm not quite sure we've seen edge of travel way before.
Yeah, I'm
New
assuming,
nomenclature.
yeah, I'm assuming that means the edge of pavement. I'd have to look at the other plan. And I know originally you guys were thinking of coming out into the right of way. a little
Yes,
down.
the original plan that was done, because the way it was done originally, it almost appeared as though where it said edge of traveled way was the edge of the property, because the way that the type of asphalt, from the road asphalt to the asphalt that was on the repair shop, it kind of changed right there, so it made it look like, oh, that must be the property line. And our original plan had it running to there when the civil engineer figured, well, you guys have been using it, so why not just ask for it? And that obviously is not a good idea. And so that's when we obviously went back to the property line. My gut is that's just kind of stayed there ever since. Of that's where it was delineated, that it appeared as though it was one type of asphalt to another.
Okay. Any additional comments or questions or
No.
concerns?
No.
Mario?
No, I think I'm good.
Martha, you have any comments or words of wisdom?
If they decide to change or make conditions to change do they have to resubmit a plan?
Yeah, I mean, that's per the original decision, and that's why they're here now.
I would like to see it the other way.
What?
I'd like to see, what we talked about,
Oh.
changing.
I mean, you're not opposed to rotating the structure and.
No, honestly, it was likely going to turn that direction anyway, once we had the discussions with the company when they said they could kind of fill in that area. And it was only ever turned that way because of shading purposes. When we turned it the other way and it was left open, it kind of defeated the whole purpose. So we'd be glad to have that as part of the requirement if if needed, because I know it was the original intent.
Just turning the pavilion, we talked about the ground surface being sand. Any signage that you come up with would need to be reviewed by the building inspector. There's no changes to parking spaces in this proposal. There's no changes to the seating capacity. Are you adding picnic tables under the pavilion, or are you moving picnic tables under the
It
pavilion?
would all just be existing seating that would get moved.
What about conditions too, that the building remains totally open with no enclosures on the bottom, like plastic or whatever for rain or something like that, so.
Yeah, I mean,
So you can hang really, you can go and close it up.
so as you stated, as Chrissy's taking notes, you have a note that the applicant had talked to the fire department about the structure, and the fire department did not have issue as long as the sides were not totally enclosed.
Yes.
Or even semi-enclosed.
We talk about that when there's tent rentals.
Correct.
It's more than 50 people in this.
We just kind of want to make
house.
sure that it
Yeah.
remains open,
Yeah.
that you're not
Understood,
having
and
plastic
look, if we're gonna
later
do
on.
anything with that, obviously, that would
Yeah.
require fire department and building inspector, and there's a whole other things on any requirements for that.
I don't think we need to, unless it's something special, know that it must meet we don't make a statement that it says it must meet the building code. Right, I mean, it has to get by the building inspector, so unless there was something particular or unique or something that was agreed to that would be allowed, but they're agreeing not to do it, then we would list it to make sure it's documented.
Right.
But we're obviously, and we never do ask of anything different of the building code, other than the building code gets followed. So I don't have issues with what you're proposing, and particularly because of you're not adding to the parking, you're not adding to the seating. The ground surface will be sand. You've said that you've already talked to the fire department, and we can note the enclosure of the sides was discussed. You made a statement as to what you're doing there. You're agreeing to turn the pavilion, which reduces the visual impact of everybody coming down over the bridge and upon entering Plum Island. I would say, though, that the one thing that I'm hung up on is just going back to the select board and making sure they understand what you're proposing with the pavilion.
Mm-hmm.
So that they granted the entertainment license, I'm sure, between what you've previously done and the experience and the incident and the way the incident was handled, that I assume that there was little to no discussion on the entertainment license, or there was no debate on it. I'm not sure.
No, a couple weeks ago,
Yeah,
no.
there was not.
Right. So, in order to help you, help us, help all the other residents understand, I'm trying to think of what I'm asking here is that that the select board be made aware of the changes from what they assumed or had known was existing there to what you're asking to do, so that they're not surprised.
I would imagine we could maybe go in with just a revised application that just shows a new site plan and just have them
Yeah, it's
understand that it's same premises area, but revised site plan, and at least get them to acknowledge it. We could have that discussion with them.
yeah. So that's what I'm basically asking. I guess I'm not asking to get a new license, but to give them the purview and understanding of what you're doing. Is there a way to say that, Martha? Or Larry, does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm not sure procedurally what you would do.
Maybe that's, you know, if this is step one and the planning board is step two,
Planning board and Concom, step 2.
and then the third step would be informing the select board what you're doing for the licensing that you, because you did submit and get a license and you were in the process of receiving this, and so in all fairness, they should be made aware of what we're actually doing.
Do you know what we provide with, I'm curious, I haven't filled out the application with the entertainment license, what do we actually provide them?
Insurance, proof of insurance, site plan.
So that would work then, if we do provide them a site plan, then we could just ask them if we could revise the site plan that's as part of the application.
Yeah, then it's unfiled, and they know
Yep.
they know what's going on, and then if there's, just wouldn't be wise if there was an issue and somebody shows up and they're not expecting, I'm sure once it goes up, everyone will know about it, but we'd just like that process to happen and play out. Do you have any other comments? or
Yeah, I still
queries,
have
or-
a question, actually. So right now, you know where it says this little shed is, that little white shed that's like a
Correct.
cube, right? Right now, I think on site, there's a second shed next to that.
No, that is the existing, to the right, yeah, that's the, there's an existing, we had rented a refrigerated container, you're talking for like a gray
Yeah,
container, that,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
So we had
So-
rented that for the season.
Well, that's still there,
Um,
but there's another thing right here.
That's
right now.
in that 7 by 30 foot section area that we're asking.
So is that going away, the gray thing? And
No,
then
no,
the
that
other thing-
that would be as a part of that, and then we would put some adjacent sheds next to it that would kind of match it, and that would be more for storing of tables, chairs, all the things that in the off-season are getting absolutely, umbrellas getting destroyed by the elements.
So you're moving it now into it.
Yeah, wait, so it's smaller right now than the one that's the 7 by 30.
No,
So-
no, it's a part of this, right now the existing one is what, 7 by 7, 7 by 8, somewhere in there, 7.
It's like 8 by 8.
No, 7 by 8.
Yeah.
We measured it out, I think it's about 7 by 8, but then we would add some ones next to it, so it kind of runs along the fence line.
So it would be 7:30.
It would be 7:30, now, it's not gonna be one structure, that's the whole thing, but it will take up that area.
So essentially, the 7 by 30 is actually like 3 smaller things pushed together, you're saying?
We haven't figured, it's gonna be something similar to what's there now, just extended down, yes.
Huh, okay. It's a little different than what I thought, I guess, but. And then the other one, the removable merchandise shed, which
Mhm.
is also there right now, is that the same size as the one that's there?
Yes,
Like
that
that's
is
same
the one that is there, correct.
So I guess maybe one of the conditions I would say is that, I mean, you know, they're all labeled removable merchandise shed, which I think I understand why you labeled them that way, so to get out of this raising it 2 feet and that type of thing. But I guess there should maybe be a condition that they're not just moving around year to year of where you want them to go, you know?
Correct, yeah, the original reason that it was done that way was when we did the initial kitchen, that was done there, it was advised to us at the time that it would be a removable structure if it needed to be taken away for flooding or something major that were to happen.
Yeah.
And so these would be a similar type of structures, but no, there's no intent to move them or start popping them all over other places in the property. I believe if we did do that, under the way the development agreement, Martha would probably understand, if we did move it somewhere else on the property, that would trigger us having to come back anyway, correct?
It would be a change to the
Yes, that would be a
approved plan.
change to the site plan.
Okay, I just wanted to sort of clarify, because with the removable word in there, it makes it feel like it's not a
That was there
permanent
just to
structure,
get
so-
around the fact that we don't wanna have to put these things on, 8 feet up in the air, it's, out on pilings, because they can be moved out of the flood zone if required.
I mean, my interpretation was that you were looking for a 7 by 30 area where you could put
Correct.
those things.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other comments, Martin, Mario?
No, I don't really want. Are you asking for that to be raised a little bit, that 2 feet clearance underneath that removal?
I wasn't,
No,
no,
okay.
no.
I mean, unless it's a requirement of the flood zone,
Yeah,
which
that's-
Concom and planning board are gonna review anyway, it's,
Yeah.
you'll
I
get
think
to
what,
it.
what Vince was saying was as long as they're designated movable or removable.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's
that's
not-
why I'm assuming they were labeled that way, so that you can bypass that requirement.
Right, but it's not our judgment to state that they need to be
Oh.
elevated. Concom
Yes.
and planning board will review that and make any statements or directions.
Right.
And the building inspector.
That's what it's got.
Yeah.
If you wanted to appeal it, then it'll come back before us. I don't have any more items, I think, to discuss.
We have to ask them to come back with a new plan? That's,
I don't think so.
no. Rendition,
It's a 40 by 40 structure,
40 by
so
40.
it's not moving on the site.
Everything would remain at the same spot, the pilings, everything would
That's
just
the,
kind of.
the orientation of the
the
building.
orientation, yeah.
On that footprint.
Yeah, I mean, we would need an updated plan at some point, but we would ask
That's
to get an
after they
updated
see.
plan after the
Yeah.
planning board. So is there a motion to be had? It's,
Yeah, I would make a motion to accept the proposed construction,
of the pavilion.
yeah, with any conditions that you have, or,
First condition is that the pavilion be turned so that the gable end faces east and west.
and then the select board be aware.
That the, I'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
The ground surface is stated to be sand. That no signage was approved and must go through permitting by the building inspector. As part of the findings, Chrissy, that we state that there's no changes to the parking, number of parking spaces, or the layout of parking spaces. There's no changing to the seating capacity. The applicant shall go through planning board site plan review. And we asked the planning board review any proposed, or all proposed finishes of the pavilion. If you're painting it, if it's natural wood, color of the siding enclosure, color of the roof shingles. If for some reason you were to add a little cupola or a weather vane on something, you know, the planning board is the time to finalize. That the zoning board will, the final site plan will need to be submitted back to the ZBA. And that final site plan will also be presented to the select board to inform them of what you're doing and to supplement the previous site plan in the entertainment application license.
We're asking me about the sides remaining open, or is that planning board?
We can say that I think is part of the findings, not part of the decision, but the findings will clearly note that we discussed that the pavilion is open on 4 sides and that the eave of the pavilion shall start at 10 feet above grade. And that is per drawings that we received. So as part of any decision, the site plan, elevations, the permit application all get submitted and recorded as part of a decision. So the dimensional requirements are on plans. And then I think we've covered the conditions of a decision. And we'll review it if we have a couple standard decisions or terms that we put at the end of. And so we'll draft this. So what Mario's saying is he's proposing that we draft a decision. We can vote on drafting the favorable decision. We still need to get the decision before us and review it in its entirety before it is voted and approved.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay, so as noted, we're going to have a motion to draft a decision to grant the finding for this structure and change of site plan as proposed and as discussed with the terms and conditions that we outlined. So is there a second to that motion?
Yep, I second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. All right, approved and on your way, still a bit to do.
Journey begins.
Step 1 of 4.
So,
Thank you.
question, do you feel like you have everything you need? Do you want to close the public hearing now, or do you want to continue it until you review the decision?
I want to continue until we review the decision and what is the schedule for going to the planning board, and what is the schedule for planning board review?
So, I mean, once the decision is reviewed and approved and it gets filed with the clerk, there's the appeal period, so it might make sense for the appeal period to run before you really start the process with other boards.
Our plan in the meantime, we have to obviously do some updates to stormwater related to this and some other items that are specific to planning board
Right,
and to Concom. So that's kind of our plan is in the next 4 to 6 weeks, kind of get that out of the way, which would probably work right into your schedule that you're mentioning.
Well, I mean, if the decision gets reviewed at the January meeting, then it'll probably get filed right after that, and then, so you're looking at February sometime.
Mm-hmm.
And then once a decision is signed and you go before the planning board, then that approved site plan would then go to the select board. Right?
Yeah, it makes sense for it to go through the entire process in case there's any change.
Right, and any additional discussion or comments that come out of that then can be conveyed at that time as to what you're actually doing instead of proposing. All right,
Makes sense.
thank you.
Thank you.
If you're going to continue, then you need a motion in a second to
Oh, right.
continue the hearing to a time, date, and place certain.
So,
What's the date? Is it the next month? Or
January 18th.
January 18th?
Yeah. so we're going to continue it and keep it open should, in terms of getting the decision, but also keeping it open if there's any additional information or something else comes in, then the public hearing is still open to that time.
Okay. Yeah, we'll try and get you even a revised plan that might show the change. And,
Okay.
that way it's at least,
So is there a motion to
Yeah,
continue to?
I'll make a motion to continue to January 19th,
18th.
18th, 18th, sorry.
18
Won't be here, but 18th.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At 7:30. All right, is there a second to that?
Yeah, I second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
All righty.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, happy holidays.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy holidays. Is there a motion?
Motion to
to
close the
adjourn.
meeting?
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion adjourned.
Happy holidays.
Yeah.
Happy holidays.